Two recordings. Okay, I'm going to leave you host, Barry. So really what's being painted here is a seductive picture trying to seduce us out of our confusion, our depression, our suffering, which the Buddhas, the enlightened beings, the warriors, see as unnecessary, temporary, and full of unhappiness and suffering. And they're seducing us into a world which, by comparison to the one that we inhabit, is magical, beautiful, powerful, and profound. But for them, it's the norm. For us, by comparison to the world that we inhabit day to day, full of our thoughts and emotions, colored continually by our thoughts and emotions, it's very different. And it's described in these terms: meek, perky, outrageous, inscrutable. It's described as being egoless, because ego is really the culprit here, the sense of I and other, which is utterly unnecessary from a Buddhist point of view, but which we are caught in. And so it's asking us to transcend that, to come out of that. And the way in which we do that is various. We do it by studying these ideas. We do it by meditating, which is to try and come back into our true nature. And then we do it by contemplating how the ideas and our experience in meditation and in life interact. These three potent tools: study, meditation, and contemplation. But I put it to you that in the beginning, the act of meditation feels very much an exercise in experiencing our neurosis, our depression, our unhappiness. And what they're also trying to do, especially these teachings, we've reached the end of this book and we've gotten to the very fruitional part of it. What they're trying to do is seduce us out of this unhappy world into a world that's very different. A world that they, by comparison to our unhappy world, is characterized as true, full of compassion, and full of magic. So that's what these four dignities really are about. They're characterizing this magic world and asking us to recognize our own potential, our true nature, who we really are. Not this sad, depressed, struggling, pessimistic, I'll never get there, I'll never be a Buddha person. But they're asking us to acknowledge or to see who we truly are. And they're trying to draw us into it with all of these descriptions. So we're being summoned into this magical world, the world of Drala, the world of authentic presence. So coming back to this text, Michael's described the first two dignities, tiger, lion, meek and perky. The third is the warrior of outrageous. And this doesn't mean being unreasonable or wild, the normal sense of outrageous. It means possessing the strength and power of warriorship. And again, what that means is that we are beginning to move into a world that is full of magic. It's all around us right now. Perhaps it's more easily seen in nature, where Drala takes place very naturally. I'm reminded of John Tyler's descriptions of the work he's doing in parks. People living in the mountains or in wilderness areas or by the ocean and experiencing the power of natural elements. But you can find it everywhere, this magic. So outrageousness is based on the achievement of fearlessness. See, fear is not the norm, although we experience it all the time. We're in our confused beings. And what it's doing is summoning us into the world of the enlightened person, the warrior, which is more the norm. And in that world, there is no I. I is a myth. It's funny, I've been thinking about this. I've been writing this memoir. And I remember early on, when I first met Trungpa Rinpoche, he was giving a talk one day about egolessness. And during the Q&A, I raised my hand from the second row and I said, well, don't you kind of need ego provisionally, just sort of to get around, pay the bills, cross the street, all of those kinds of things? He leaned forward in his chair, and in my memory, his eyes were bulging, and he bellowed at me, "Ego is a lie." That is something that we could really take to heart. Ego, the sense of I, me and my journey, me and my well-being, me and my hopes and fears, me and my talents and failings. And he bellowed, "It's a lie." We're being summoned into the world of reality. And this world, for the first time, or maybe it's not the first time for you, but it feels like it for me, even though I've heard all this before, going back decades. The way in which we're being summoned is we're being summoned by the teachings showing us how magical and beautiful the world truly is, instead of this veil of tears that we feel that we're walking through. So the warrior of outrageous, no self-doubt, gives up self-doubt. Nothing to hope for and nothing to fear. Never caught in the ambush of hope and fear. Why? Because there's no question about what the world is. They're right here. And this is symbolized by the Garuda, the legendary king of birds, which hatches full grown from its egg and soars into outer space, expanding and stretching its wings beyond any limits. And it also has in its claws the Nagas. In this instance, the Nagas are not happy beings. They're symbols of ignorance and stupidity, and the Garuda clutches them in his claws and eventually eats them. The warrior of outrageous, having overcome hope and fear, develops a sense of great freedom. This is all describing sort of the transition into it, this sense of freedom. And the state of mind is outrageousness, and it's very vast. Your mind fathoms the whole of space. You'll go beyond any possibility of holding back. In this regard, I remember Trungpa Rinpoche telling me that he needed, when he met somebody for the first time, he needed about 6 minutes to fully understand everything he needed to know about that person to help them on their path. How about that? 6 minutes. And I think it's because our neurosis is so common and repetitive and obvious. So outrageousness is accomplished without a sense of accomplisher, without reference point. And he says the warrior of outrageous soars into outer space like a Garuda king. You experience a greater world and attain a greater mind. And this is produced by your training as meek and perky, and so you can be outrageous. And this warrior of outrageousness possesses great mercy for others, because you have no obstacles to expanding your vision. This is what I think of that 6 minutes. You have immense capabilities of working for others. And in fact, at this point, the warrior has nothing to do but work for others, to be responsive to others, to constantly be introducing them in one way or another to the real world, to be waking them up from the world of dream, which is so sad, depressed, unhappy. This is why suicide is the most heinous crime in all religions. It's because it's a rejection of the real world and a capitulation to this imaginary world. We live in an imaginary world, in the world of confusion and suffering. It's the world of the creation of ego. So then we come to the warrior of inscrutable, unknowable, inscrutable, can't be read. And he's represented by the dragon, which is energetic, powerful, unwavering, combining the meekness of the tiger, the perkiness of the lion, and the outrageousness of the Garuda. It has two categories: inscrutability, its state and its expression. And its state is based on complete fearlessness. Fear is just gone because one is no longer trying to preserve, protect, solidify I. Instead, one is the warrior of inscrutable, is just present, going with whatever presents itself, enjoying this constant and unfolding display. And so the warrior has gentleness and sympathy. You can be non-committal, he says, but with a sense of humor. And again, I remember the first time I ever heard Trungpa Rinpoche speak his topic. He gave a talk here in Manhattan, well, not here in Manhattan anymore. I lose track of where I am. But he gave a talk in Manhattan in the Lower East Side in a loft. And the title of his talk was Sense of Humor. And I sat there in full lotus, trying to impress the guru, I guess. And he brought in this 16-year-old blonde with him. That was his wife, Diana. And I was sitting there trying not to look up her skirt because I could see her underwear. And he gave his talk about sense of humor, which I felt was utterly without any humor. It didn't make me laugh. And so I left thinking, well, not that guy. Wrote him off. But the warrior of inscrutable has a sense of humor. How about that? He's being like the dragon who enjoys resting in the sky, in the clouds, and in the wind. It's a beautiful image. This is a beautiful world we're being summoned into. This world of magic, dragons, tigers, and lions. Oh my. He says, you can be playful, the warrior of inscrutable, and it's joyous and methodical. There's a combination. He abides in the sky in the summer. This is the dragon. Hibernates in the ground during the winter, rises from the ground in the spring with mist and dew. And when a storm is necessary, the dragon breathes lightning and roars thunder. Terrific. So it's really a matter of settling down into your confidence. Sometimes the teachings can be so sad and depressing because they focus on our neurosis. These teachings are trying to summon us into a world of joy, magic, generosity. And at the same time, this warrior is very interested in the whole world. Tremendous genuineness, because he or she is not deceiving themselves at all. They're just utterly present for whatever happens to be presenting itself. Yeah, he says, not interested in being the center of the scene and very loyal to others, always accomplishing your project with sympathy for them. You know, as I read through this, I kept picturing him in my mind and how he was just always there, ready to respond to whoever appeared before him, to whatever was presented to him. He never seemed to be lost in thought or in some other concern, just always ready to be responsive, to play, to interact. And I think this is what we're being summoned to. He manifests this warrior, she, methodically and elegantly. Elegance is a teaching that very much goes part of the Shambhala world. We are enjoined to live elegantly, to dress elegantly. It's an act of celebration. We beautify ourselves not so that we can be proud, but so that others can enjoy looking at us. Same thing with our homes, meals. The Shambhala aesthetic is one of beauty and celebration. He says, you don't spell out the truth, but you imply the truth with wakeful insight, with your very being. If you just spell out the truth, it loses its essence and becomes either my truth or your truth. You just embody it, this warrior. He says truth is generated from its environment. In that way, it becomes a powerful reality, generated by the warrior. So the vision of the warrior is to create an orderly and powerful world full of gentle energy, an environment which contains fearlessness, warmth, and genuineness. In order to get there, the warrior has to go through a training. We're all going through this training. Again, the three wheels, they're called: study, contemplation, and meditation. And what those three wheels encompass changes as we proceed along the path. We study different teachings. We meditate on different practices. And we bring the two together through contemplations. And there's an art to contemplation as well, which we may get to at some point. He says, starting with the right attitude to life. Again, we're being enjoined now to come into this world. Delight, leading your life elegantly, with some sense of celebration, appreciation. The sense of wholesomeness makes life worth living. The sense of genuineness brings confidence. He says inscrutability, this virtue, comes from giving rather than taking. As you give, you find service available automatically. And thus the warrior conquers the world through generosity, which brings freedom. When you are generous, it brings freedom from your own poverty mentality. And then you relax. He says, when the warrior feels a sense of leadership and order on earth, That appreciation brings some kind of breakthrough. The closed and poverty-stricken world begins to fall apart. This is in the warrior's mind, the way the warrior apprehends the world. And from that feeling of freedom, you begin to appreciate natural hierarchy. You are a part of it. Then inscrutability becomes the natural way. Natural hierarchy. This is seeing how people are leaders, people are followers, people have functions. The world has a hierarchy that is very natural and celebratory and human. He says, you begin to appreciate natural hierarchy, you are a part of it. Then inscrutability becomes the natural way, including respect for elders, sympathy for kin, and confidence in colleagues. At that point, learning is no struggle, and blockages are overcome. When we talk of hierarchy, we refer to the structure and order of the universe. This is, in the Chinese scheme, heaven, earth, and man, as we've talked about. In the Tibetan, Plan, Yin, and Lu, the gods, humans, and the serpent deities. And there's an order to the way all of this interacts. And when the order is observed and celebrated, life is good on earth. And when it's not, things fall apart. Plague, famine, war, disease of all kinds. These are what come about when the natural hierarchy is lost and not celebrated. He says, so the discipline of genuinely working for others comes from appreciating natural hierarchy, how the world works together. And finally, I'm just going to read this quote. Inscrutability is brilliant and fearless because the warrior is guided by the vision of the great eastern sun. The vision of the great eastern sun is about the ultimate value and preciousness of this life and world. With exertion and delight, you can lift yourself up in order to achieve authentic presence, wangtang, the field of power, and ultimately the state of being the universal monarch. That means no ego, just completely here, accurately responsive to the world. By opening yourself and fearlessly giving to others, you can help to create a powerful world of warriors. That's the vision of the great eastern sun, this world of magic. So we can have a discussion. Meg.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that these teachings are so beautiful, and they're about the natural world. And you spoke about the natural hierarchy and the elegance and beauty and so on. And it seems like there's a certain amount of privilege that we have just to be hearing these teachings. And I'm thinking that for people who aren't so privileged, like people who are in prison or living like in the projects, and either they don't have access to these teachings, or even if they did, their world may not get much more, may not become very beautiful. And I don't know, I wondered if there's a response to that, or if how you address the underprivileged when it comes to these teachings.
I'll take a shot at that, and maybe Michael or Barry has something to say too. These teachings are open for everybody. At the same time, this tradition is not one which proselytizes. We're not selling it. It's really available to anyone. All are welcome. but it takes a kind of inclination to come to this. And what the teachings say, one of the approaches to your question is that people evolve and move closer to the teachings through multiple lives. Now, those lives can be literal, like, you could be a dog in your last life and a human in this life. It can also just be stages of this life, multiple personalities. But you have to develop an inclination towards wanting to hear this, wanting to fundamentally deal with who you are, and being also, there's a kind of simpatico. We can't be everything to everyone. And so people are drawn to us because of our particular personalities and perhaps backgrounds and so forth. I mean, I and others have taken these teachings into unusual environments. Years ago, I went into the prisons here in Boulder, and I did it again in New York and taught meditation to prisoners. And it's really interesting to what extent there's always a group of prisoners who want to meditate and do. Trungpa Rinpoche had a student, Fleet Mall is his name, and I don't think Fleet would mind me telling this. Fleet was convicted of drug trafficking in a big way. And he was sent away for, 15 years or more in prison. And he spent that time teaching the Dharma. And he is a Dharma teacher today. He's been out now for decades. But he spent 15, 18 years in prison. And he taught the Dharma. So, yes, we wish everyone could hear the Dharma. We wish that we could hear it more clearly. But it takes a certain evolution. And they say that there are three kinds of people on the path, at least. There are those who in past lives, and again, you can take the idea of a life literally or figuratively, as stages in this life. There are people who in past lives have done so much work on themselves and have studied the Dharma that when they come to it in this life, they instantly hear it and connect and achieve Buddhahood. Those are called instant realizers. Then there are those who have made a lot of progress in their past lives, but still need to do a lot more work. And they come to this in this life, and they make a lot of progress, and who knows how far they'll get. And then there are those who have done almost nothing in their past lives, but who hear the Dharma, something keys, and they have to start. And for them, they have to go through the gradual stages of the path, which they may do more or less rapidly, depending on their talent and inclination. So this isn't being held back from anybody. Not at all. It's really, but again, we're not proselytizing. We're not going out there and handing out, cutting through spiritual materialism, going up knocking on people's doors and offering them books. I don't know, does that help?
Yeah, I mean, I just, if you're, for example, if you're in prison and you're coming into awareness and coming into the present moment, it might not be a pleasant place to be.
I think any growing awareness and compassion, even in a prison, will improve your life. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, if you're in a very, very nasty environment, and it can really, the people who came, to us when I and some other people, I just saw an old friend of mine who we used to go into the prisons together, and all these guys would show up, like 15, 20 to learn meditation, and they're dressed in orange. That's the first shockaroo. They all come in and they're all dressed in orange, and they've, and they seem like absolutely normal people, like all the people on this screen. That's what they seem like. They don't seem like some kind of terrible person, criminals different from you and me. They seem just like you and me, only they're wearing orange. So you teach the Dharma. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, I was going to Fleet does have a organization where he continues to teach in prisons. I can just show people really quickly.
Oh, great.
The Prison Mindfulness Institute. So anyway, there are people who try to make teachings available. In one sense, prison's an ideal place. In that there's not a lot of other things to do. It's not like they're it's not like they're caught up in the busyness of ordinary life in the way most people are. So in one sense, if somebody really was able to get into practice, it's there's a real opportunity. But that's not to deny there's also tremendous difficulty. The only other thing I'll say is, like John said, I think the teachings are really meant for everyone, and that's why over and over it's emphasized these are human qualities. That's true in Buddhism. It's really true in the Shambhala teachings that it isn't like something that some people have and some people don't at all. At the same time, I have to say I think that there are ways in which there may be cultural barriers that nobody intends to have, but still they're there because different groups have different cultures and different things that they're responsive to, and that's something that I think different organizations have tried to grapple with in different ways. There are a couple of teachers of color, Angel Kyoto Williams and Lama Rod Williams, who are really interesting to listen to if you have a chance.
Yeah, and it's always been interesting to me that, look at this room. It's so white, and it's sad. It is. That's the way it works.
Just because for myself, as I found these teachings so powerfully helpful, and there are people in such pain. But yeah, there has to be some openness and some receptivity as well. At the same time as we need to perhaps be more aware of inadvertent barriers that we put up. I don't think anybody means to exclude anyone, but
in the teachings they say that they talk about the 6 realms. The God realm, the jealous God realm, human realm, animal realm, the realm of the hungry ghosts, and the hell realms. And of those realms, the one that can really the only realm that hears the teachings is the human realm. Now you can think of realms as being literally rebirth, like it could be reborn a dog or a cat, and a dog or a cat can't practice the Dharma. But it's also a psychology, of the animal realm is the psychology of stupidity, just sort of put one foot in front of the next, as opposed to, and these are psychologies that human beings can have, to be very animalistic. To be hungry ghost is constantly to feel impoverished and poor and hungry, like you want hunger. And to be in the hell realm, and we see people in the hell realm and walk down the streets of Manhattan, some guy walking along screaming to himself, is the realm of hatred, anger, and fear. And so if you're in one of these realms psychologically, is that you can have a human body that be in a realm, the hell realm, you're not going to practice the Dharma. You don't have time. You're too busy trying to ward off everything you're afraid of, and with hatred. And it's the same thing, the God realm. Donald Trump isn't going to practice the Dharma. He's president of the United States, which probably puts him in a little bit of a lower realm right now because he's unhappy that he's not president anymore. But different concerns. It's people who are in the human realm, the realm of passion, it's called, which is appreciation of this world, that are the best practitioners of the Dharma. So it's a matter of psychology as well, what makes us prone more likely.
Yeah. Or as he said in the text, the lower realms refer to living purely for survival.
Lodro. Oh, well, I'm not going to read this, but because you gave it to me.
We have about 6 minutes left here if we go by our schedule.
That was a terrific
Mark's had his
question.
hand up for a while.
Yeah.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. I'm just thinking, to me, the perfect example of how people in dire situations can be very liberated, and in fact can be saved in a lot of ways. The children who got stuck in the cave,
Mhm.
and they were in the cave in complete darkness. And I understand they meditated. I don't know if they were actually Buddhist, and their coach was Buddhist, and this got them through. They were in a world of, where you could just, I imagine, really freak out. And this environment was ideal to help them, especially before even anybody was able to communicate with them. And to me, prison is the perfect example of the samsaric world, and to be able to liberate ourselves with our mind and not have to be dealing with the environment around us necessarily, but being in the moment. I mean, we can meditate looking at a blank wall. And I understand that is a practice, and you're fine. You're absolutely fine. Anyway, I just wanted to talk about that.
Thank you. Who else?
If we have a moment, there's one thing I forgot to say in talking about particularly the perky quality of the snow lion, which is that when we're caught up in fixed mind, then our energy tends to be tied up and in struggle and repressed or unbalanced in some way. So that one reason we experience the energy of perky is because we're able to let go of fixed mind, so that there's no obstruction or imbalance, or it's not tied up, or our energy is not tied up or repressed in any way.
And Shini just put an interesting message to all of us in chat. Thank you.
Yeah, there's another good film, Doing Time. Let's see, I think it's Doing Time, Doing Vipassana. Is a 50 minute or so documentary. Definitely worth a watch.
Okay.
Jinyi, is that a book or a movie?
It's a book.
Okay, thanks.
Well, okay, everybody, maybe we should end at this point and close with the closing chants. Sarah, are you here? There you are. Yeah, I think it's time, almost. Anybody, any last words? We've got a couple minutes. Okay.
I was going to make a joke that you've got a captive audience in prison.
Thank you.
In reality, I worked in asaning. We had several programs in the prison. It was like the high school is 2 blocks away from Sing Sing. And we would have speakers, and we would bring the kids into the prison. And one of them stands out was Piri Thomas, the author who had been in Sing Sing prison, and he talked about how he became a writer, and he said in prison he learned to read, and and then he read to write. And it was very powerful for the kids. We had several programs, and the kids actually worked with the prisoners. It was a great exchange. I think some of the folks kiddingly said, that it was a good idea because then they would behave better, but that really wasn't the point. But it was great to see young people working with prisoners. It was really, I think, a great life experience, and those kids will remember their time with getting to know some of these men in Sing Sing.
Okay. So I'm going to put the chants up. We'll talk about this more tomorrow. I hope I'm going to put the chants up.
We will close with a prayer for peace, and then by dedicating the merit earned by our practice for the benefit of all sentient beings. By the blessings of enlightened and compassionate ones, by the power of my positive actions of 3 times and my prayers of pure aspiration, may wars, conflicts, epidemics, and all other maladies dissolve in this world. And may the earth and all who live on this earth enjoy the abundance of well-being. May all learn to live lovingly with each other. By this merit, may all obtain omniscience. May it defeat the enemy wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. By the confidence of the golden sun of the great east, may the lotus garden of the Rigden's wisdom bloom. May the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled. May all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory.